So you gave up. You gave up the fight game properly
Yes.
2 years ago. You said.
Yes.
Okay. How many titles did you hold when you gave up? How many have you held in your career?
Well, I've been undisputed champion, and I held the WBC belt for quite a while.
Yeah.
He beat every man he ever faced and walked away on top without any scandals or shame. Lennox Lewis should be a name that echoes forever, but somehow it doesn't. At 59, the silence around him is loud, and it's only left fans with more questions than answers. How did one of boxing's greatest champions become one of its most forgotten? This is the tragic reality Lennox Lewis is living right now. Lennox Lewis used to be everywhere. You couldn't talk about boxing in the 90s and early 2000s without saying his name. He was on posters, in magazines, on TVs, and the lips of every sports fan. People tuned in just to watch him fight. He had it all: the titles, money, fame, and respect. But then, everything suddenly went quiet. So, what happened? How did someone who was once on top of the world just fade into the background? To answer that question, we need to rewind for a second to where it all started. Lennox Lewis was born in London but raised in Canada. He was tall, smart, and could hit like a truck. After winning a gold medal for boxing for Canada at the 1988 Olympics, he turned pro. From there, things took off, and he fought some of the biggest names in boxing and beat most of them. Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Vitaly Klitschko, you name them, Lennox stood toe-to-toe and came out on top. In fact, Lennox Lewis is still the last man to be the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. That means he held all the major titles at once, including the WBC, WBA, and IBF, which is a very rare feat. Not even Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua can claim that. That should have sealed his place as a living legend, right? Well, it did. Sort of. You see, after winning against Vitaly Klitschko in 2003, in what turned out to be his final fight, Lennox walked away from boxing. He retired while he was still champion, without coming back or dragging things out. He said he wanted to leave the sport on his own terms, not when people were begging him to quit. And honestly, that was a smart move. But for Lennox, it was quite weird how everything turned out. The thing is, when most boxers retire, they usually come back because they miss the spotlight. They miss the roar of the crowd and the money. But Lennox didn't. He stayed retired and never even partook in exhibition matches or made wrestling appearances. Sure, he popped up every now and then for a brief interview or commentary gig, but that was it. But we have to ask, did Lennox choose to fade away? Or was he simply never given the spotlight he earned? And if he had played the fame game a little more, would his name still ring out the way Tyson's does today? Maybe that's why fans kept waiting for something like a big TV return or a documentary. Even a sit-down interview spilling secrets from his career would have sufficed. But instead, Lennox seemed to just disappear. Now, you might think that's classy, and for some people, it is. But for a lot of fans, it's been confusing. They remember Lennox as this towering figure, literally and figuratively. He was sharp in the ring and confident without being cocky. So to see him vanish from public life has felt strange. Some people say he never got the love he deserved, especially in America. And honestly, they might be right. Lennox wasn't the flashy type. He didn't trash talk like Tyson, and he didn't have the wild lifestyle of other heavyweights. He was calm and always seemed a step ahead, both in and out of the ring. But sometimes, being quiet in boxing means being forgotten. Even during his peak, the American media didn't fully embrace him. He was British-Canadian and didn't play into the drama. That made him great in the ring, but maybe a bit boring to some casual fans. And when you're not loud, it's easier for people to overlook you. even when you're winning. And now, 20 years after his last fight, a whole generation barely knows who Lennox Lewis is. Ask younger fans who the heavyweight greats are, and they'll probably name Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, maybe even Deontay Wilder. But Lennox doesn't even make the list sometimes. And it's not because his career wasn't impressive. It's because he chose silence after he left the ring. Money, fame, and missed opportunities. After Lennox Lewis left boxing in 2003, he had it all. He was the undisputed heavyweight champion and had millions of dollars in the bank. He had avoided the brutal downfall that hit so many other fighters. He was healthy, had a family, and most importantly, he still had his mind. That should have been the perfect setup for the next chapter of his life. But for some reason, that next chapter didn't turn out the way people expected. In the early years after retirement, Lennox mostly kept to himself. He had made a lot of money during his career, and people believed he had invested it wisely. He had homes in Jamaica, London, and Miami. He was living comfortably with his wife and kids. Everything looked stable. But soon, rumors started spreading. Some boxing insiders whispered that Lennox had put money into a few bad business deals. Others said he'd tried investing in real estate and entertainment, but the returns didn't come. There were even reports of him losing money in movie projects and failed partnerships. To be clear, Lennox has never confirmed that he lost any money, but even without confirmation, the rumors stuck. They followed him, and the reason was because he didn't do much to prove otherwise. In the world of boxing, and in the world of fame in general, silence is dangerous. If you're not posting photos on yachts or showing off new deals, people start assuming the worst. And because Lennox wasn't in the public eye, people started talking. Meanwhile, other retired fighters were making headlines again. Mike Tyson, who Lennox beat in 2002, made a massive comeback in popularity. Tyson was in movies, podcasts, and interviews. He started his own cannabis company and made millions again. Even fighters who didn't have the same success in the ring were popping up everywhere. George Foreman had his grill, Floyd Mayweather kept making money with exhibition fights, and Oscar de la Hoya launched a major promotion company. But Lennox did nothing but remain quiet. And that quietness may have cost him more than money. It may have cost him his place in the spotlight. Lennox could have been a top boxing analyst. He had the knowledge and saw the sport with sharp eyes. And fans always respected what he had to say when he spoke. But he never fully stepped into that role. He'd do commentary from time to time, but never on a regular basis. He didn't build a media brand, launch a podcast, or coached anyone. He didn't create a second identity after retirement, and in the world we live in today, that matters a lot. Now, this doesn't mean Lennox didn't try. There were reports he was involved in a few small businesses and events behind the scenes. He also appeared at some charity functions and boxing ceremonies. But nothing stuck. Nothing turned into a major brand or lasting legacy. Plus, there was also the issue of timing. When Lennox retired in 2003, social media wasn't what it is now. Instagram didn't exist, YouTube was just starting, and retired athletes didn't have a clear roadmap to stay relevant. But by the time things picked up in the late 2010s, Lennox didn't catch the wave. He stayed offline for years, and his name faded from the conversations. And it's not like the sport was waiting for him. Younger fighters like Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury came in and took over the spotlight in the UK. In the US, fans still held on to the Tyson Holyfield era, and Lennox was kind of stuck in between. He had wins over both, but never got the same love. He was too quiet for American fans and too distant from the newer UK scene. It didn't help that he had a few public disagreements with other boxers. He and Tyson Fury went back and forth a few times in interviews and online posts. Lennox would criticize modern fighters for their lack of skill or poor conditioning. Some fans agreed, but others thought he sounded bitter. The younger fighters didn't respond kindly either. And just like that, the gap between Lennox and today's generation got wider. Some believe Lennox made one big mistake, and was the fact that he never built a team around him after retirement. He had no manager, media guy, and no one to help him stay relevant. He tried to do everything himself, and maybe that worked during his career, but it didn't work after. There were also missed opportunities with brands. While other legends were signing deals with sportswear companies, health brands, and even movies, Lennox seemed invisible. He didn't push to be in commercials, and he didn't chase endorsements. And the sad truth is, if you don't push, you don't get. And here's the thing, Lennox didn't need to do all that to survive. He wasn't broke and living on the streets. But being okay and being great are two different things. Fans wanted him to shine. They wanted to see their champion still winning in life. Instead, they saw a man slowly fading from view. And that hurts because Lennox Lewis wasn't just good, he was one of the best. He deserved recognition, spotlight, and celebration. But the world doesn't always reward low-key power, especially in the boxing industry. It rewards noise, and Lennox just wasn't built for that kind of game. And now, at 59, it feels like the world has moved on without him. For a man who once moved like a heavyweight chess master, Lennox today has become far removed from that version of himself. And while that's expected with age, fans can't help but notice how different he looks and sounds in the rare moments he shows up in public. Questions begin to pop up. Is he okay? Why does he seem slower? Is something going on that we don't know about? To be clear, Lennox has never publicly said he's battling any serious illness. There's no confirmed diagnosis and no official statements from his team or family. But that hasn't stopped people from worrying and talking. When clips of Lennox from recent years pop up, some fans have pointed out changes in how he speaks or moves. His voice that was once commanding and quick sometimes sounds a bit slower or more labored. And it's so easy to see how much more reserved he's gotten just from studying his body language. Although these aren't crazy changes, they're noticeable if you've followed him for a long time. And in a sport like boxing, where athletes put their minds and bodies through brutal punishment, fans are especially alert. We've seen what happens to legends after the lights go out, like Muhammad Ali, Freddie Roach, and countless others who suffered the long-term effects of head trauma. So naturally, people look at Lennox and wonder, is he going through the same thing? A lot of his fans are leaning towards chronic traumatic encephalopathy as what ails him. It's a brain condition caused by repeated blows to the head that can lead to memory loss, mood swings, confusion, speech problems, and eventually more serious health decline. Many former football players and boxers have been diagnosed with it posthumously. It can't be fully confirmed until after death, but the signs often show up early. Now, Lennox had a long career that spanned nearly 15 years as a professional, and in that time, he went up against the hardest punchers of his time. Even with his excellent defense and technical skill, he still took hits. That's just part of the job. And not just regular hits. We're talking about punches from Mike Tyson, Hasim Rahman, David Tua, and Vitaly Klitschko. That kind of damage adds up over time, even if you're a careful fighter. Plus, boxing training itself takes a toll. Years of sparring, intense cardio, and stress on the joints all leave a mark. And now, at 59 years old, Lennox is simply not the same man he used to be in the ring. Which in itself is not tragic. because that's just life. But in Lennox's case, the concern is a lot more because of how quiet he's been. Another reason fans are worried is because of how healthy he used to look, even after retirement. In the first few years after he left boxing, Lennox looked strong, sharp, and relaxed. He had that retired champion glow. But as the years rolled on, he started putting on weight. His face looked puffier, and even his energy seemed lower. Of course, none of this is unusual. Gaining weight after retirement is common. Slower speech can come with age, especially after years of physical strain. But again, when it's a former world champion, fans tend to notice every little change. Some also wonder if the silence has something to do with how he's feeling. If he's struggling with health issues privately, maybe he doesn't want to share it with the world. Maybe he's choosing privacy over public sympathy. That wouldn't be surprising since Lennox was never the type to chase attention. He was always more about results than headlines. There's also the emotional weight of aging that no one talks about enough, especially for former athletes. Imagine being in your prime, standing in front of thousands of fans, cameras flashing, commentators calling your name, millions watching you on pay-per-view. Then imagine waking up one day and realizing your knees ache, your voice isn't the same, and most people don't even recognize you anymore. That mental change alone can be heavy, and it's something a lot of athletes go through when the spotlight fades. Lennox has hinted at this before in interviews. He once said that the hardest part of retirement wasn't the physical change, but the fact that he was not needed in the same way. In the ring, you had a purpose, and every day had structure. But after that, you have to rebuild your identity. So maybe Lennox is still figuring that out. Or maybe he already has, and he's just doing it privately. So where exactly is Lennox Lewis now? What's he doing at 59? And why does it seem like he's vanished from the public eye? Well, first things first. Lennox isn't completely off the map. He shows up here and there. Sometimes it's in a short video clip or a quick interview. And once in a while, he'll appear at a big boxing event, sitting quietly in the crowd. But compared to how active he used to be, his public presence today is almost ghost-like. And that's what has fans both confused and concerned. Let's start with what we do know. Lennox has been spending more time with his family. He's married to Violet Chang, a former Miss Jamaica runner-up, and together they have 4 children. From all signs, he seems to be a dedicated father. He's mentioned in the past that he wants his kids to grow up with strong values, away from the spotlight that follows famous names. That could explain a lot about why he's keeping things low-key. He's also still tied to boxing in small ways. Lennox occasionally does commentary for major fights, though not as often as other retired boxers like Roy Jones Jr. or Mike Tyson, who's always so hyper. Lennox keeps it quieter, and when he does speak, he's thoughtful and usually avoids anything dramatic. He's also supported events and charity initiatives, especially ones connected to youth programs and education. In 2020, for example, he supported calls for more structure around brain injury research in combat sports, showing that he still cares deeply about the sport's long-term impact on fighters. Even though he's not always front and center, he hasn't completely left the fight behind. Recently, Lennox was involved in the production of a documentary about his life called Lennox: The Untold Story, which was released in 2020. That film gave fans a glimpse into who he is beyond the ring. It talked about his childhood in Canada and the UK, his early struggles, and how he became heavyweight champion. The documentary was well received, but it didn't lead to a full comeback into the spotlight, especially not in interviews, on social media, and definitely not in the way fans were hoping. And speaking of social media, Lennox does have accounts. but they're mostly uneventful with a few posts here and there. You'll find the occasional birthday wish for a former opponent or a message about a charity. He's not sharing daily photos, personal stories, or videos about his life. It's just surface-level stuff, which is fine, but for fans hoping for updates, it leaves a lot of space for speculation. There are a few business ventures too. Lennox has worked with youth boxing programs. He's shown support for keeping kids off the streets by getting them into gyms. He believes boxing saved his life, and he's been open about wanting to give back. But again, this work is mostly under the radar without press tours or big promotions. Then there's the question people keep asking: why has he gone so quiet? Nobody knows for sure. Some think he just doesn't care for fame anymore. After all, he left boxing on his terms and didn't wait to be knocked out. He didn't drag out his career for money, but walked away after his victory against Vitaly Klitschko, still a champion. Maybe he figured he didn't need to prove anything else. Others wonder if it's health-related. Maybe he's keeping things private because he's not feeling his best. As mentioned earlier, fans have pointed out that he seems slower now, less engaged, and even tired during public appearances. But without any clear statement from Lennox, it's all just speculation. There's also the theory that Lennox is simply enjoying life. I mean, think about it. He spent years being hit, training non-stop, and living under pressure. Maybe this quiet phase is his reward. A peaceful life without the cameras and chaos. Just time with his family and time to rest. Still, it's hard not to wonder, will he ever speak up again? Will he sit down for one big interview? Will he return to the boxing scene as a mentor or trainer? Or is this it? A quiet life behind the curtain, far from the noise of the world he once ruled? Leave your answers in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoy this video, please click on the next one on your screen.